All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Thursday, April 24th, and it is draft day in the NFL. Also, here on All in Horns, we are going to be previewing Texas baseball and softball as it is rivalry week for the Longhorns. They will be taking on Texas A&M on the baseball diamond, and they will be traveling up to Norman to take on the Oklahoma Sooners in softball. So rivalry weekend, we've got the NFL draft, a big weekend ahead of us, Jake, and a long stretch of sports, whether that be NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, college baseball, college softball, NFL draft. This is one of the highlights of the sports calendar, in my opinion. I just absolutely love everything about this time of year because we're getting all the playoff hype with the NHL and the NBA. And then also you're starting to see, you're starting to get just a little jittery for football season as well at the same time.
Yeah, you get March Madness, Masters, then you get NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, college baseball starting to get close. I do always like the World Series. And you kind of get all that fun in before you have those very long couple of months before football season.
It's like
you have to enjoy this. You have to savor every last day of these last couple months of the sports calendar.
Yeah, it'll be towards the very end of June whenever we're like at the end of the NBA playoffs, end of NHL playoffs, and I'm just like, uh-oh, it's happening. The dark days are approaching, and it's going to be blistering hot. And yeah, it's just a little break from sports, which is never a bad thing, but also it's always a bad thing at the same exact time.
So now we have golf because we talked about how
we have golf.
Golf does change things a little bit. Still, you're missing that void of the team sports.
Right. Yeah. And golf is funny. Jake, how did you pick your favorite golfer?
Guys who've gone to Texas, guys who've gone on podcasts I like, and then a little bit of full swing. I mean, just so basically content in Texas.
Yeah. You just kind of like look at a guy, you either like the way he plays when you're watching him on TV. So for me, Jordan Spieth in 2015, I really started watching golf in 2015. You had this kid from Texas who played at the University of Texas and won 3 majors in one season. And he got second place for a single season Grand Slam. And and I'm like, oh, we've got potentially someone who's going to be like pushing for Tiger type dominance in the golf world. And he went to my favorite school and he's from my home state. So yeah. So from 2015 on, I've been a huge Jordan Spieth fan. Now, has there been anything to root for Jordan Spieth over the last, handful of years other than, maybe a tournament win here or there? Yeah, maybe. But and then Scotty Scheffler came on, and again, Texas ties obviously kind of got me there. But then you just watch interviews or just like, you just kind of get to know these guys on a personal level. And so I'm like, yeah, of course I like Brooks Koepka. He's Blake Koepka on Pardon My Take. So of course I'm a big fan of his. I'm going to root for him. And then, you get other guys that are kind of like Colin Morikawa. I first watched Colin Morikawa content on Bob Does Sports, and he did a round with Bob Does Sports. And I was like, oh, this guy is kind of cool. Like, I just kind of like him, his personality and stuff. And so now, since then, I've always rooted for Colin Morikawa.
Yeah. Max Homa, another guy who hopefully is starting to play golf again. He went from being one of the top golfers in the world for a very long stretch to not making a cut for about a year.
Yeah.
And then did play very well at the Masters, but he's a guy who he went on the Foreplay YouTube channel, did a match against their 4-man scramble back when they actually had a 4-man scramble that was fun to watch. And then he went on Bob Does Sports, did the same thing, and then he's obviously been on Pardon My Take a bunch. So that's kind of like I just have a certain amount of guys I root for, and I don't really care about just being a fan of one guy in golf. So it is a little bit different.
And obviously this all begins with watching Tiger on Sundays. That's kind of where the beginning stages of loving golf begins.
Yeah, I mean, even if he is in a wheelchair and playing golf at the Masters, I will watch him
Well,
play golf.
it's like on the video games. He's a 99 overall, and
And he should be.
all the other golfers are like 90s or 89s, and I'm like, okay, he's not that much better, but he should be. I mean, he's a legend in his
It's
own
Tiger
right.
Woods. He's a 99. If he probably has it to where it's like, if you're going to put me in the game, I'm a 99.
I'm a 99, and they're like, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, you don't say no to Tiger Woods.
No.
That doesn't work.
Excuse me. All right. Well, it is rivalry week, Jake. We'll go ahead and get into the baseball, softball talk. We'll probably end the episode talking a little bit, giving a little bit of a take on the NFL draft. I know we haven't talked too much about it, but that is later tonight. And then we will come and release a Friday's episode reacting to round 1 of the NFL draft later on this evening. So, but yeah, we'll kind of end the episode there talking a little NFL draft. But before we get to that point, Jake, it is rivalry week for the Texas Longhorns. Baseball takes on Texas A&M. And if I didn't have to buy a new washer this weekend, I would probably be trying to find tickets to this game. But other, homeowner issues have.
Didn't you just get that fixed?
So yeah, and then it just broke. So, and then we had an electrician come out to see if it was like the breaker box, but it's really not anything to do with the fuses or the wattage going into it. And he was like, "Yeah, it might just be the washer itself."
I think the maybe the lesson we both learn now in home ownership is when an appliance like that goes out that is, around 1,000 to 1,500 or less, you just buy a new one.
Yeah,
You just
so
don't even bother.
yeah, so we're gonna probably and then what we might do since we're just gonna get a washer, what we'll probably end up doing is end up selling the brand or a perfectly good dryer that is not gonna have any issues with it. Try to get some money to get a matching dryer with the washer that we're going to buy. So anyway, that's going to be our weekend issue. That's for a little bit later down on the road. But I was looking at A&M tickets, wanted to get that. This issue arrived, and I was like, probably best not to, considering groceries are also through the roof and had to get groceries this week too. So, but Texas baseball taking on Texas A&M. Texas A&M, Jake, on a hot streak. Probably one of the hottest teams in the country right now, if not the hottest team in the country right now.
Yeah, I think I saw they were batting around 310 in this streak they've kind of gone on since that no-hitter that Tennessee did. For some reason, that sparked them. And since then, they've gone on a tear. I think they're around 9-2 since then, and have beat all top teams essentially. They've taken down Tennessee when they were number 1, and several of these series on the road as well. And so another chance for them to knock off a number 1 team on the road. And I thought they were going to be ranked coming into this. They're not, which I'd almost rather than be ranked just for the metrics of if Texas wins.
Sure.
And so this is probably A&M when they're at their most dangerous against a Texas. When they come in unranked with a legitimately very talented team, and playing their best ball. Texas banged up. Jonah Williams got hurt against Texas State. We don't know the severity of that. You don't have Jared Spencer pitching. I know this is going to sound like a bunch of excuses to A&M fans. They would say the same thing if it was going their way, and I'd say the same thing back to them. That's a bunch of excuses. But it just kind of is what it is. I mean, the injuries right now for Texas baseball are getting to a point where it is season threatening if they cannot get more healthy before postseason time. And the biggest area of concern with the team as of right now, I would say.
I mean, you're looking at your number 1 guy, Jared Spencer, not playing, and you're getting deeper into that depth chart of guys who are maybe playing on a Tuesday night. And, obviously Texas has shown its struggles on Tuesdays, Texas State most recently. And so, it is one of those things where you have got to rely on a guy like Riojas to step up and be that guy and be able to go 100 pitches deep. You're going to have to rely on your starters for a much longer period of time. And that relies on your batters being able to put up runs, or at least extending innings long enough to where, you're not just going 12, 15 pitches deep into an inning and then you're getting rotated out.
Yeah, This will be the toughest. I would venture to say this will be the toughest test for the Texas baseball team all season long. This weekend, because it's a big rivalry. Emotions will be high with the Schlossnagel thing. It's going to be ridiculous. You have a scorching hot team who was number one at the start of the year for a reason, because of the talent on their roster, that for whatever reason just could not get it going, and have since got it going. And so you just, despite the fact they've played Georgia, they've played LSU. LSU's probably the second best team in the SEC right now. They've played all these tough series. I think this is probably the most difficult test for this Texas baseball team when you consider all of the injuries and you consider just how on scorched earth that Texas A&M has been as of recently.
Yeah, and some other good SEC, games going on this weekend, or series going on this weekend. LSU, Tennessee, that's going to be a big one to kind of keep an eye out on. And then, honestly, Oklahoma, Georgia might be a pretty decent game. Oklahoma, number 14, Georgia, number 10. So a good series coming up there as well. But, what's also kind of crazy, Jake, is with the injury. Ethan Mendoza leading the team in batting with a 347 batting average, 4 home runs, 27 RBIs. But yeah, and then you got to have guys like Galvan kind of fill in. Jalen and Justin Flores have got to, be guys that are consistently getting on base, and really from top to bottom on your lineup, you've got to be threatening Texas A&M's fielding. Whether that be the infield or the outfield, you got to be testing them constantly in this series, because if you aren't doing that and you're just letting this be a pitching battle, Texas is, they are in hot water of possibly losing this series, because you're going to have a very highly motivated Texas A&M team coming in.
Yeah, I still haven't, even though we're going to probably be making our picks this podcast. I still haven't really picked a winner, right? Because I want to just pick Texas because against A&M, Texas has been the number one team. But man, if this Texas team finds a way to win this series, it would be incredibly impressive because of all the factors we've talked about, and that makes it almost difficult to pick them to win the series. And I think A&M is probably going to be the popular national pick to win this series, because when you look at what they've done recently, and if you're aware of all the injuries Texas has had, almost feels like Texas is due for a series loss. Like and then A&M fans will act like they actually won the College World Series. And so it feels like a recipe for disaster. For this,
there seems a lot of outside factors that are going against Texas in this game. But here's one thing that I've loved about Texas all season: it hasn't really mattered. It hasn't. None of the adversities, none of the issues have really gotten in the way of Texas. Whether it be pitching issues, whether it be batting issues, whether it be injuries, whether it be travel, whether it be getting into a new conference, whatever the issue is, whatever the obstacle, Texas has really just won. And that's something
except for Tuesday nights.
So a good thing that this series is not played on a Tuesday night. But that's been one thing of this team has been battle tested. And every single time you and I, Jake, we look at each other on a Tuesday night and are like, oh, great, they're doing this right before Georgia series. Oh, great, they're doing this right before such and such series. Right before A&M series, rough Tuesday night against Texas State. But, you go out and, you're probably going to see a Texas team highly motivated to right that wrong come Friday. And if they're not, then they're going to get beat. If they're not motivated to win this series, which they will be. But if they're not just as motivated and fired up to beat A&M as A&M is to beat you, you're going to have a long weekend.
Yeah, and it's going to come. The bullpen is going to have one of their best series of the year, because with A&M, they were always one of the top pitching teams in the country. And I think I even said that when they were at their point where they were like 1-9 in SEC play or something ridiculous like that. I said, yes, A&M's bad, funny, but they are a top 5 team in ERA and in almost all of the pitching metrics. They were a top 5 team in the country. They were just horrendous at the plate. And it's like, that's something that can just completely flip in baseball. And I didn't think it would flip to this level, but it has. And when they're batting like this, they're dangerous because you don't score many runs against this A&M team, especially over a three game series. And so I think this is going to be a highly emotional, just high energy series.
It's going to feel like postseason baseball.
Yeah, it's going to feel a little bit like postseason baseball. And I think it's going to come, Texas is going to have to fight and claw to find a way to win this series. And I don't see them sweeping this series. I will say that immediately. I definitely do not see this being a sweep.
One thing that we have not mentioned, Jonah Williams with an injury. So will be questionable for this series, probably doubtful for this series, with the information that we know now at the time of this recording. So, but yeah, that's a bummer. Someone who was just kind of getting going and getting within the starting lineup, and then boom, already out of it.
At a position of need too for the Longhorns, and that hurts because he was really revitalizing that kind of back end of the order. That's kind of been maybe the one weak spot at times of this Texas team, and the reason why their batting average isn't that high when you look at it on a country base. A lot of their runs come from the top part of their, the top half of their lineup. And so I'll be curious to see how that bottom half of the lineup does in this series, and that they may be the difference of whether they win or lose.
Jake, you might know this stat better than I do. I'm going to butcher it. I guarantee you I will. But what, Texas A&M was like 114th of RPI or something like that, and now they're at like 31st or something along
in a 3-week stretch, they went from about 114th after the no-hitter from Tennessee on them. And now they are nearing the top 25, I think just outside of the top 30.
That's an insane shoot. I mean, if you're buying stock, you're buying it in Texas A&M.
Someone is going to get A&M in their regional and be hosting a regional and be like, seriously, we got to play the team who is number one to start the country, just didn't play baseball for the first half of the season and then went on fire. I mean, that's going to be, and I certainly hope they don't end up in the Austin regional.
No, I don't think they will. Currently, right now, they are sitting at the TCU regional in Fort Worth, and
I would favor A&M.
And they'd be the third team in. So they're playing a 2 seed right off the bat, and they're probably
will likely change though. They'll. I mean, if they continue the trajectory they are on now,
from now until then, and that only actually favors Texas for A&M not to be in their region, because Texas will be probably the top, number 1 seed, within their region.
Yeah, top 5 feels like. I mean, unless they just go on a terrible stretch because of these injuries, but at this point, there's not that much season left.
Yeah.
But they do. I mean, this last stretch of the season is going to probably be the toughest part of their schedule. With A&M. Kind of was looking at that series several weeks ago going, okay, Texas should win it. A&M will probably show up, play their best series. Well, now you're certainly hoping they don't play their best series with how they've played as of late. Then you have at Arkansas and you have at Oklahoma, who's very good as well. Very tough into the season. And especially with all the injuries, and we don't know how long some of these guys are going to be out. Some of them might be back come Arkansas, come Oklahoma. But this is going to be a very testing into the season for Texas. And I don't think they're necessarily going to come out of it unscathed, undefeated when it comes to series.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I do agree, Jake. All right. Prediction time. Let's go ahead, put in our predictions, and then we'll talk a little softball. And then after we're done talking softball, wrap up the show with a little NFL draft talk.
I can't predict A&M to beat. Other than in basketball this season.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Texas 2-1. My confidence level in this is about 45%. I mean, if I was gun to my head betting, I would probably bet the other way. But this Texas team, there is something to be said about the way this Texas team battles adversity. And I do think it's been pretty special, some of the games they've won this year. That sweep against Auburn was really impressive, especially when you have the game where your pitcher gets hurt and goes out in the 3rd inning.
The Georgia series, the Auburn series, I mean, there are some really impressive 3-game stretches for this Texas
Yeah,
team.
I mean, the LSU coming back after the first loss, looking outclassed in the first game, where it's like,
Yeah.
definitely not SEC ready, and then going and winning that series, and that kind of starting the run. And I mean, on paper right now, I would favor A&M, but I just think this Texas team has a lot of fight to them, a lot of grit, and this is a Texas podcast, so I think they're going to find a way.
I've got Texas 2-1 in this series as well. I've got Texas winning game 1, A&M winning game 2, and then extra innings in game 3 to decide the series. And Texas comes away, not in walk-off fashion, but they'll get the job done. So, Jake, let's go ahead, switch gears to softball. Looking at the standings right now, I love looking at the standings and seeing A&M, Oklahoma, Texas as the top 3 teams in the softball SEC standings. The triangle of rivalries there. And so Texas will be taking on Oklahoma in Norman this weekend. And another huge series for Texas, where Texas has when facing higher competition in softball, you've seen their level of play not at its peak. You've seen them struggle more often against higher competition.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the series win against, Florida, and that was a big series win, but Florida's sitting there at 11-7 in conference play. That was a big win. But Tennessee is, that kind of next best team which is ironic because Texas is back up to number 1 in the softball rankings now, which I don't know. Debatable whether or not they should be.
It feels like they're just kind of riding the previous ranking system right now, and they have not really given the rankers a reason to knock them down.
Their record is equivalent with these other teams.
It is. But in terms of if you're just looking at the way this team is playing and you're just on-field play, they probably don't look like the number 1 team in the country.
No, and maybe the issue is there isn't a team that necessarily looks like the number 1 team in the country right now. I don't think this is like the last 4 years of softball.
Yeah.
This is not like the last 4 years of softball where it's just OU's going to win it.
Yep.
I mean, there was no doubt the last 4 years that when Texas made the title game, it was just like, cool, we got second.
Well, it was like, cool, let's get a game.
Yeah, it was like win a game, and then maybe win the first game or the series is over, but win the first game and see what happens. And yes, I know Texas beat OU in a regular season series. When it got to the Women's College World Series, OU was playing at a different level than they were in those series games. But this is a big series for the ladies. I mean, you dropped that series against Tennessee. You kind of, clawed and fought to beat LSU. And LSU's a 500 team in conference play now. They're 9-9.
Mm-hmm.
The softball, SEC softball is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because 500 means you're a top 10 to 15 team in the country.
Absolutely.
And Texas sitting at 13-5 in conference play. OU 13-5 in conference play. I think OU's dropped series to Alabama and Tennessee, if I remember right. The thing that concerns me in this series is how are the Texas bats going to do? OU's pitching is not as good as it's been in previous years, and it's not as good as Tennessee or probably even LSU's. I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but I know their pitching is not near as good as it has been. And that to me is the area where I feel a little bit better about the series than I thought I would. Just because Texas, yes, has struggled in hitting, but mainly just against the top of the top pitchers.
Yeah.
They've struggled. And if the bats are hot for them, I think they're going to have a really good chance to win the series. And OU's really young as well. This Texas team has a little bit more experience than OU. And so ironically, I think if you asked me a week ago, I would have picked OU. But for some reason, I just think the bats are going to come alive a little bit this weekend, and they're going to find a way to win the series.
You feeling more confident about softball winning their series than baseball winning theirs?
Maybe, I think a little bit, just because the injuries in baseball are. I know they've overcome it over and over and over, but the softball teams, they've found ways. It's not like they've dropped several series.
No.
And
I agree.
the baseball, it's just at some point the levee breaks whenever you've had so much go wrong. And it feels like this would be A&M's, Super Bowl of the entire athletic this season because they've been embarrassed by Texas in every other sport. But yeah, I would actually say I'm a little bit more confident in Texas softball winning their series this weekend. I still, like I said, 45% confidence for the Texas baseball, probably around like 55% confident in the softball winning.
All right, well, let's go ahead and give our predictions.
Yeah, 2-1. I definitely don't think it's going to be a sweep.
Texas grand slam against Texas State in the top of the ninth, 14
How are
to
you
11.
so far ahead of me? There are 2 people on base right now for me.
Oh, I'm so sorry then. And then I don't know if you're just lagging or something, but
Yeah, I must have.
Jalen Flores grand slam at the time of recording gets a 4-run shot and gives Texas a 14 to 11 lead in the top of the ninth. This team just finds
ways. I mean, Texas State not a good team, but a Tuesday game where you are just throwing arms out there that haven't pitched in weeks.
Yeah.
Because you can't use any of your important arms for this weekend, and now you're down an arm. Finding a way to win would be nice. That game not final though, obviously.
Yes.
And the
Texas State still has to get at bat. So
yeah, and this hasn't exactly been a low scoring game. So, but yeah, I do think softball. I do pick them to win 2-1. It'll be their biggest series win of the year.
I'm gonna go ahead and put. I think Oklahoma wins this series. I do. I'm gonna go 2-1. Oklahoma wins this series, and it's mostly because it's at home. I just think that they're going to be. I think Oklahoma, however, their run this season has not been as dominant. I do think that they still have that pedigree of when it's approaching the end of the season, going into postseason play. They're going to get the job done, and they're just going to turn it on to this other gear. And I think we're going to probably start to see that this weekend. And maybe it's just the games that I've watched of softball. They just don't feel like the number one team in the country right now. Maybe they prove me wrong. Hopefully they do prove me wrong, but I'm going to say a 2-1 series in favor of Oklahoma for the softball this weekend. So, all right, Jake, any final comments, thoughts on baseball, softball before we switch to NFL
does
draft?
Play Oklahoma State. They did play them on Wednesday. We don't have a final of that as of time recording, as you can tell by our reaction to Texas State.
Yeah.
That actually makes me a little more hesitant that they're playing on a Wednesday and then have to play OU Friday through Sunday.
Yeah.
I imagine they're staying in Oklahoma.
I would imagine the travel back and forth is not going to happen.
But also softball players are different beast when it comes to the endurance side of things. But it's just a huge weekend upcoming for baseball. I'd say more so for softball. Baseball has built some cushion to where they can drop a series and they will still be at top of the SEC.
They haven't dropped a series all year long. So, I mean, honestly, dropping a series would just kind of put them,
don't want them to, especially against A&M, just because how they're I mean, they could lose 100 years in a row.
I don't want them to lose the series primarily for me being on Twitter or X, the Everything app. Everything happens on
X. They'll forget that football exists and that they lost the biggest game in that rivalry's history in football. And it's just like, I mean, you could beat them 100 years in a row. They beat you 1 year. They're going to pound their chest and act like you're never going to beat them again.
Yeah, they're going to peacock you for sure. All right, Jake, NFL draft. Let's go ahead. I want to give my take on it real quickly before we wrap up the show. This year has felt really weird for the NFL draft. Not a lot of excitement. I don't think there's big superstar players, to be completely honest with you.
Which means there'll be a ton.
Which means that we'll probably all be wrong, and it's going to end up being a legendary class. But there also hasn't been any, pre-draft trades. There haven't been any talks of trades. Everyone seems pretty content with staying put where they're at in the order. I think this time of year, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in terms of who's interested in who and all the things of trying to, get people off their trail of who they want to pick. But I just don't know if there's a superstar coming out of this draft class that from the quarterback position, from the wide receiver position, there might be a running back or two that kind of come out. But I think this is a lot of depth pieces. I think there's solid contributors, but even through the bottom half of the first round draft, I'm not entirely sure we're going to see a lot of like just game changing picks in day one.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the top half of the draft has some players with some serious potential. And Abdul Carter, I think, has a chance to be an absolute freak. I think the top 3 offensive tackles are all going to be really good NFL offensive tackles. Ashton Genty has potential.
So Genty has potential in both succeeding and having a high ceiling, but an extremely low floor and just busting completely.
Yeah, because of running backs. I mean, you're kind of dependent on the team you go to. I do think he's going to go to Jacksonville, which I actually do think could be a decent fit for him. But, you have a Jalen Walker, who I think could be a monster in the NFL as well. Michael Williams. I mean, anyone with the Georgia that's from the defensive side of the ball is probably going to be pretty good. Then I do think there's just a lot of boom or bust, I think, for certain positions, especially the wide receiver position.
Yes.
I think Matthew Golden's probably the most stable wide receiver to take in the draft as far as where you think his production floor and ceiling is going to be.
I also just think, in terms of where the wide receiver class has been maybe the last 5 years, this is definitely lower end of the wide receiver groups that have been, coming in and out over the last, half decade.
Yeah, as a whole, I would agree. I do think the boom, the level of boom chance, the boom. Sorry, I don't like those guys, to be clear, but I just you can't say boom and not think about it.
They're a little catchy.
You could get 10 booms or only 2 booms, with like a Tet McMillan from Arizona, Luther Burden from Missouri, guys that I think do have a ridiculously high ceiling for the NFL, but also have a ridiculously low ceiling.
Well, and I think the corners in this class, actually the top 2-3 guys actually are going to be pretty solid starters. I don't think there's much bust potential, but it's just not a very deep class. And then once you get into that second tier would probably be sitting at a maybe third or fourth tier in other cornerback draft classes. But you do have your Jahdae Barron. Jake, let's go ahead and talk Texas guys in the first round, day 1, Thursday night. How many guys and what position do you think that they fall to?
I think so. Kelvin Banks, obviously the big one for me. I have started to see him get mocked higher as we get closer, which I think is funny because I think there was a lot of smoke and mirrors being played with him because you just had this pure propaganda about him being like 6'3" and having T-Rex arms. And then that all got proven wrong at the combine. Yet somehow the propaganda pushed through actual physical freaking data you can look at. And also film you can look at, which some people apparently aren't very good at watching film for offensive linemen. But I've seen him mocked around to the Jets or to the Bears. I think he's going to end up with the Bears. I think the Jets will take Mimbao, the offensive tackle from Missouri, and Banks ends up being. I do think the top 3 tackles are like, you got like 1A, 1B, 1C, like, or 1A1 and 1A2 and 1A3. I mean, I do think they're all 3 going to be very good starters in the NFL at worst. I would take Banks top. I'm a little biased there though. So Banks at 10. I think Jahdae Barron is going to go to Miami. I've seen a lot of mock having him going to Miami. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then,
if it's not Jahdae, then I could see it being Will Johnson from Michigan.
Yeah, Will Johnson from Michigan would make sense there as well. But I do think Jahdae Barron will go top 15 in the draft, and then Golden could go 12 to Dallas.
I was about to say he's been linked to Dallas a lot.
Yes, him and Tet are both being linked to Dallas a lot. And I think I think they probably have, from what I've read as of, today, of the recording, is they have McMillan a little bit higher. And so if they were choosing between the two, though they're not necessarily just going to outright take a wide receiver, they may trade down. We don't know. That they would take McMillan, but he might not be there. I could see a team taking him higher just because he does have crazy potential. And then I could see Dallas taking Golden. But then if Golden doesn't go there, he could drop. I saw on the ESPN, the final mock draft they did, they had him falling all the way to the Rams at 26. Which, just from a watching perspective, I would enjoy.
That would be a great spot for him to end up.
That's probably where he would be with Jordan. The only thing that sucks there is just living in Los Angeles. But as far as the football side of things go, that is a tremendous fit.
Well, it's Sean McVay as your head coach. You've probably got at least 1 or 2 more years of a decent Matthew Stafford if he can stay healthy. Jake. So here's my thing with Texas players specifically. Kelvin Banks, I'm with you as a top 5 pick. I think Jacksonville would be a great fit in terms of protect your young Trevor Lawrence quarterback. Even number 4. I know a lot of guys have the LSU tackle, going at number 4 with New England, but again, Drake May, young quarterback, got to get the left tackle situated. So anyone who is looking that already has a young quarterback and doesn't have a good offensive line, it could be New York for all I know, at number 3. But I do think he's worthy of a top 5 pick. Now, if he drops, if say these mock drafts are valid in terms of Kelvin Banks dropping to number 12, if you're Dallas, you take him. Hands down, no questions asked. I don't care what the sexy pick is. I don't care what wide receiver you have there. You take Kelvin Banks at number 12. That's my number 1 if he falls to that point. I don't think he will. I think left tackle is too valuable of a spot. For Jahdae Barron, who I think is going to probably go next in the draft, I could see Jahdae, I think San Fran probably needs a little bit more help than corner. However, they could probably use just about anything at this point, but I do think that they'll be looking to replace Trent Williams at left tackle. So whether it is any of the top 3 guys that will more than likely be available at number 11, I could see them going tackle for sure. I wouldn't mind Dallas taking a look at Jahdae, to be 100% honest with you. But yeah, I think Miami's probably a decent fit. I think Indianapolis, anywhere between that 12 and maybe 17 spot from Dallas to Cincinnati, I could see, Jahdae having a good spot with really any of those teams, Atlanta, Arizona. And then, I do think Matthew Golden is probably, in my opinion, probably the 3rd Texas player that gets drafted in the first round. Where he falls, it could be anywhere from 15, maybe even 12 with Dallas, all the way to the end of the first round to Washington. I just don't know where teams, have him. They might have differing players, but as I've listened to more and more draft coverage, Jake, it feels like the top 2 wide receivers are Tet and Golden. It feels like that's the 1-2 guys.
Yeah. Luther Burden, you would have thought he would have been the number 1 before the season, but his kind of just,
he might fall to late 2nd. It feels like.
I think he'll still go in the 1st, but there's always wide receivers you get started talking about, like they may fall out of the, and then someone takes them. And especially with there's too much talent that you can see on film. Luther Burden's primary issues are when he's not the primary wide receiver, just seeing some like lackadaisical routes at times and mental stuff.
Jake, for Dallas, let's all in Cowboys just real quick. You and I both Cowboys fans. Real quickly, best case scenario, some dark horses. Who do you want? Who do you absolutely not want? If there is a player you absolutely do not want.
Not want would be staying put and drafting the Ohio State offensive tackle.
Yeah.
Josh Simmons. I've heard they like him.
Yeah.
If they want to take him, that's fine. But I would be trading back and getting capital,
Sure.
trading back quite a bit deeper into the first round to get that. I don't mind. I mean, unless a Kelvin Banks falls here, or some super surprising pick. Because you're an Abdul Carter's not going to fall that far. Like, I don't think a Jalen Walker is going to fall that far. If Michael Williams is there, I would like that.
Can I throw
But
a surprise? Can I throw a surprise at you that take it, leave it, throw it away? I don't know. Tyler Warren. If he's sitting there at 12,
I like
and
I just
and Genty's off the board, Tet's off the board, Golden's off the board, Banks is
I think
off
I
the
trade
board.
back at that point.
You just trade back?
I think I just trade back at that point because I mean Tyler Warren would be fun, but out of all the positions of need, tight end's just not one of them. And you don't want to draft based off need. You want draft best player available, but I don't know if that means taking a tight end in the top 12 when you already have who pretty much everyone.
I wanted to throw it out there.
It is an interesting question because that would be tough to turn down. I'll put it this way. I'm not throwing stuff at the TV if they draft him.
No.
But at the same time, do I think that necessarily makes them a better football team this year? Probably not, unless they're going to run a bunch of 2 tight end sets.
They'd have to change their offense.
I mean, at that point, I think you trade Jake Ferguson, which I bet you could get some pretty good draft capital.
You could probably get something for him.
And I mean,
next year's draft.
I don't hate that as much as I like Ferguson. If you're going to get a Tyler Warren on a rookie deal, starting over that kind of contract clock,
we've seen teams, Detroit Lions, do exactly that. TJ Hawkinson got traded. Trade him to Minnesota. We're going to go ahead and go get our guy, Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta, hell of a tight end. We're going to do the same thing with running back. Oh, we got David. We've got, some decent running backs already. Well, we're going to get Jahmyr Gibbs. Jamal Williams led the league in touchdowns scored. But Jamal Williams, we know you're not the guy. We're going to go ahead and get David Montgomery, and we're going to get Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round, and we'll trade you away. We've seen very successful franchises, Detroit in particular, that jumps out to me, do exactly that in terms of, we're solidified this position, but we could get a rookie who's probably can put up just as good, if not better, potential on a rookie contract and not have to worry about signing you. And we can get draft capital or trade assets from you in a trade.
Yeah, that's why I say I had to kind of think through it. And I think that's how it turns out is then you start shopping Jake Ferguson, which Jake Ferguson, ironically, one of my favorite players on the roster, just as far as his attitude, how he approaches the game, his style of play. But if you get a chance to get a Tyler Warren at that spot, starting on a new rookie deal and everything, and then you can bring in more draft capital to improve your team further.
Yeah.
That's not a bad deal. So that is an interesting one to bring up. I don't think that's going to be in play. I think the most likely scenario is a trade back. I will say, I think if Ted McMillan's there, I think they take him. If he's not there, I think they probably trade back.
Yeah. Here's another just quick scenario and then we'll sign off. But I get so intrinsic with when it comes to the NFL draft. Golden, Genty, McMillan, all on the board at 12. Again, I think you trade back, probably. I don't think you have to force your hand at picking just one of those three.
Did you say
guys.
Off the board or those all three are on?
They're all 3 on the board at 12.
Probably take McMillan.
You taking McMillan?
I just think he is going. I think he complements CeeDee Lamb really well.
Yeah. I think when it comes to a compliment to CeeDee Lamb, and I hate taking a second option in the first round at number 12, but I think
you can have 2 number ones. Look at what the Eagles did with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith.
You're right. In this day and age, you don't necessarily have to have a 1 and 2 option, but I almost think Golden maybe fits that role. I don't know. It's tough because
I don't mind if they take Golden there, and I'd be fine with either. It's just if you trade back and both those wide receivers go, and you had a chance to draft either, I do think there is a point of being, and depending on who you get, you know, a little bit of a point of kicking yourself, especially if both those guys turn out to be really good.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could trade back into the, to like pick 20 and take a Luther Burden,
Yeah.
get
Well,
draft capital and take that third
or
option.
you just trade back a couple spots. Trade back to 15 and let 3 picks go ahead of you, and then maybe that pick will be decided for you. But then again, I see, and that's where I hate it, is because I like to be in control of my own destiny. I don't want a pick to be made for me by me trading back just so other teams can get guys off the board that I'm conflicted on, whether or not it's him or him.
Yeah, and the draft is the only area I give the Cowboys a little bit of grace. And I know they haven't been perfect. The Guyton pick hasn't worked out yet. I give guys more than 1 year before I say they are a bust.
I give them 3. I give them 3 years, and then I'm like, okay.
Like Mozzie's on his last year of, he showed at least a little bit of flashes at times last year. And so now he's kind of on that last year of grace period.
Believe it or not, Dallas has done better rounds 4 through 7 than they have. Well, maybe not 1, but at least in the second and third round.
Their round 1 picks have mostly been good. And I mean, they hit more than other teams.
Second and third round
most
picks,
other teams.
Second and third round picks have been sometimes,
especially
second
round. The second round is the one round where I'll be like, that's the round they mess up the more often than not.
Right. Yeah. But they do find some good depth. They find some diamonds in the rough when it comes to rounds, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah,
7.
I mean, Will McClay is the only thing keeping that organization afloat. And he's not perfect either, but a lot of the times when you get some of these draft picks, you don't turn out to be good. You learn it's a coach who really rallied for him.
Right.
And it'll be interesting. I think Dallas is in a really good spot in this draft to where they're going to have a lot of options. And it matters on the trade offers too. If you're getting an offer that's not worth it, pick a player.
Yeah.
There's going to be good players available there.
There are.
Don't trade back unless the offer's worth it, unless you're getting, a couple extra picks or depending how far back you're going.
We traded back to get Micah Parsons. People forget about that. So
yeah, exactly. Sometimes the trading back has been worked out very well for the Cowboys. And so
then you trade up to go get Des Bryant. It's wherever the draft,
which is like the last time we traded up to get someone.
And then you stay put and you get CeeDee Lamb that falls in your lap. It just sometimes things the draft works out the way it works out. You just have to take advantage of when it kind of
only time I've been like screaming at my television to draft an Oklahoma player, by the way. Like Lamb was the pick I wanted. Like,
I wanted CeeDee Lamb so bad. Yeah, I had never been happier than
I'd seen him play enough against Texas where it's like, yeah, this guy's gonna be a freak.
Yeah, it would have been the same thing with Adrian Peterson. I've wanted Adrian Peterson to be a Dallas Cowboy forever, but even at the end of his career, when he was like, yeah, maybe one last ride, and I like Dallas, I was like, yes, get him, get Adrian. Yes, get Adrian Peterson.
See him in the jersey.
I would buy an Adrian Peterson Cowboy jersey. Yeah. All right, Jake. Well, that's going to do it, man. My overall take on the NFL draft, though, this is early before draft, but draft hype, I'm probably going to put it at like a C plus for me in terms of just excited about this draft class. Not a lot jumps out to me. But you are going to have 2 Colorado players to have their jerseys retired before they even get drafted. So that's cool.
I still am excited to just watch draft coverage, get to see the film of the players. And
well, it gets you ready for football season.
Yeah. I still love watching the draft, but as far as like and part of that comes from the quarterbacks. I don't think you have a surefire quarterback at all in this draft. In fact, I think it's crazy that the Titans are going to take Cam Ward.
Yeah, I do
with
too.
The first pick.
The best player in this draft is Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I'm taking one of them first.
Yeah.
I will go, what do I need more? Because at that point, I do think you're looking at I think Abdul Carter might have a little bit of a higher ceiling than Travis Hunter.
Well, I think edge is just more valuable.
If I'm picking 1-1, I'm taking Abdul Carter this year. And then I don't think a quarterback should go until 15.
Yeah.
At best. Because you do figure in quarterback, like quarterbacks are going to go in the first round.
Wild. Jackson Dart is getting top 10 talk now.
Whoa, I
Yeah.
had not heard
Oh
that.
yeah, no. Last couple mock drafts I've seen, it's Jackson Dart like flirting with the top 15, top 10.
I haven't seen anything saying this, but man, I could still see someone jumping just late in the first round going, I'm going to take Quinn Ewers. I could still see someone doing it.
Yeah.
I think Quinn will go second or third round, but all it takes is one team.
Would he be the surprised fourth Texas Longhorn that could possibly get drafted in the first round if there is going to be a fourth one? I don't think Isaiah Bond is going to.
Yeah, Bond's definitely not.
No.
Yeah. I mean, if there was going to be one, it would be him, just because quarterbacks are such a wild card. People jump up and take a quarterback that you never expected to go in the first round. Not every year, but it happens often enough to where it's not impossible.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list right now. I just don't think Cam Williams is going to be. He's going to be like third round, I think, maybe later.
Yeah, Cam's the one who, man, I wish he came back. I would have no worries about the offensive line if he was coming back. But it'll be fun. There's going to be a lot of Longhorns with their names called between the whole draft when it's all said and done.
Between now and Saturday, it'll be a lot of fun. All right, Jake. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up the show. This is your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. Friday's episode for tomorrow. We will record also Texas State went final 14-11 is your final. Texas wins in the top of the ninth with a grand slam and then shuts out Texas State in the bottom of the ninth. So that is going to do it for today's episode for All In Horns. That's Jake Jimerson. I'm Tanner Carlson. This is your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.